So when we come to the this my client group and workforce structures, through this you can go in and see all the individual workforce structures that you can create. Okay.
Yeah.
Things like, positions, jobs, department, legislative data group, grades, everything. Okay. Now, when we talk about department, if you remember, I had said that essentially it's an organization. So there can be different types of organizations. So all the organizations that you can define are in one single place.
Okay.
So they may be called business units, departments, divisions, disability organizations, reporting establishments, enterprise HCM, whatever it is. Okay, but ultimately at heart, they are all organizations. Okay. Similarly, for the legal entities, there is a place for managing and maintaining all the legal entity information, the security profiles, and data roles. Everything is over in one single place. Okay. So like you asked, if you were to go to division, you click on the manage divisions and then you can search and create as per your need. The basic structure of all the pages is similar. You have the search section at the top, and then you have the results or the create, edit icons over here, through which you can create or edit existing ones. So let's say I want to look up some existing one.
Can you give an example where we have divisions also for an enterprise?
Like these regions that you have, US, Americas, Middle East,
Okay.
so Asia.
So basically divisions are like created on the basis of areas or
Areas,
country.
geographic areas, continental areas, or businesses, how are they organized?
Okay.
Mostly you will find like MEI is one region. Okay, the consulting companies like PwC or Deloitte, they would be organized into Americas, North America, South America, and then you would have something like EMEA. EMEA would be Europe, Middle East, Africa. They all get clubbed together. Then you have Asia, and then you have Australia, New Zealand, those regions. Sometimes Singapore falls under Australia, or sometimes Singapore is part of Asia.
Okay.
So those could be one way of doing the divisions in the consulting world. In the manufacturing companies and all, they typically, depending on the business, generated. So if you look at a oil industry customer, so you would have you would have a Middle East as a very important region, because oil and gas is a very important industry there. Right. Whereas financial services, banking, all of those, UK particularly, is very important. So they probably highlight the UK market, or they would highlight the Americas market.
Also, when we create the workforce structure items, right, like creating a location, job, and all those, should we follow any particular sequence of the creation, or can we do it parallelly also?
Yeah, excuse me. I will talk about it. Okay.
Okay.
We'll
Okay.
slide on that, and I think we'll cover that.
Sorry, I asked a lot of questions.
No, that's perfectly okay. Oh, it was not loaded. Okay, so let's say we create a division here. So you can just,
Okay.
so you can give reasons, locations, you can tag them along depending on what you need. Every division can have a reporting manager or a manager who is responsible for that division. So you can tag that organization manager if required. Okay, so this is the search result and the action buttons. Okay, so that's the division where, remember, we, if that enterprise flow that we had, the first one is the first one that we had was the mm,
Legal entity.
division. Yeah, enterprise and then the division. So after the division, we had like the legal entity. So if you scroll down, you will see the section for legal entity. Okay. So manage the legal entity. Oh, sorry, not this one. So in case, see all these ones that you are seeing here, it's okay if you get them here. Some of them you may not get here. So for example, you have this managed business unit. There is no legal entity here, right? So legal entity, I'll show you the other place. So if you go to the business unit, here you can review your business units. It's very short and sweet kind of screen, nothing much here. The important thing is the business unit, and this is your reference data set. And if you want to create, again, you click on this plus icon and you will be able to create it. Okay. And in case you don't find it in this list here, you have to go to the setup and maintenance. Here you have all these other options. Okay. Like manage legal entity, it was not over there. Okay. 1 minute. Oh, you have joined, Shivani? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Through mobile, I have joined. My system is not
Oh,
working.
okay, okay. Yeah, you're not feeling well, you said.
Yeah,
Okay.
tiredness. That's it.
Okay. Did you get a chance
Mhm.
to do the practice?
No, no, Saurav, as I will need some time because only one day I got gap and I was not feeling great as well.
Okay, okay.
So actually, I was okay. I'll leave it.
Okay.
Don't.
So today what we are doing is, that day we saw how we create the enterprise structures in one shot, right? Through the wizard.
Yes.
We went to division, we went to legal entity, we created all of them in one flow,
Mm.
right? But now today we are seeing how we are going to do them individually. So might be you created one division at that time just to set your structure in place and get going, but you need 4 or 5 divisions. How will you define it?
We can add. Okay, fine.
So now here we are going to the each of the different screens. Were you there when we were talking about the division?
Mm.
Okay, I will show you that. Now here you see this is the legal entity. Okay, so we came and searched for legal entity under setup and maintenance, and we are going to the manage legal entity screen.
Mm.
And other things that you have like legal addresses, legal entity registrations, all of these are in the setup and maintenance part.
Okay.
Now, when you want to go in and see, or you want to create a new one, what happens is this screen, you have to select a scope. Okay, what does scope mean? Suppose you are making changes to any existing legal entity, then you have to select and add the legal entity from here. And then you say apply and go to task. It will show you a list of legal entities from where you need to choose the legal entity and then do the changes. Okay. So these legal entities are already created. So you're making changes to an existing one. Now, in case you want to create a new one, you do not need this. You would instead click on this create new here. Can you see this? Create new.
Yes, yes.
Use the create new and say apply and go to task. So it brings you to the search results where the existing legal entities are shown, and you can also create by clicking on the plus icon.
Okay, before it was not mentioned, right? Plus
Correct.
icon, now we change.
Correct. So now we can click on this create. And here you can create your own legal entity. Okay. Now, along with this legal entity, you may designate the same legal entity as a legal employer as well. Okay. And it might be the payroll statutory unit as well. Okay. So the same legal entity can act as a statute PSU, payroll statutory unit, or it can act as a legal employer. Okay. So if you want to create a new one, let's say I want to create a new one. I will call it SP Americas INC. And have a start date if there is a logical start date. And you may designate it. So if you want to look at the help, okay. So
Okay, so this is we have two options to report to whom and what. We
yes.
cannot do it
So,
on the same
yes,
time, right?
payroll statutory unit is the entity that is responsible for deducting of taxes. Okay, taxes and the social security, the statutory compliances that are required. Okay, so based on your need, you would be defining them. Similarly, you define a legal employer. Lot of times what happens, companies are acquired. So you might have a legal entity which is different than the legal employer or the tax reporting entity. Okay, a company gets acquired. So in that case, the company that is acquired is registered separately as a, may not be the legal entity anymore. It is already registered with the government. So those employees who belong to that acquired company will continue to be on the same payroll.
Yeah.
Okay. And here you can again, against this, in case you want to say this is a statutory unit, you can tag this as a statutory unit. You don't have to name anybody else. In case this is the legal employer, okay, then you need to tag which is the payroll statutory unit for this legal employer. So from the drop down, you need to choose the payroll statutory unit, whatever the name may be. Okay, and if you probably have seen a pay slip for American employee. Have you seen that, Ankita?
Yeah, I have seen it.
Yeah. So over there, and maybe you would have also seen, Shivani, on the payslip itself, name of the employer is mentioned, the official name. It may not match with the legal entity or the name of your employer or the name of the employer of the employee whose payslip you are reviewing. So it does sometimes it does seem a bit weird that, you know, the name of the entity is something different and the statutory unit is different and all that. But that's more like, you know, the official registered body and all that.
So now,
Yeah.
this payroll statutory unit is basically another legal entity which I assign, right?
Not just legal entity, it may not be a legal entity.
Okay.
It might have been registered. See, a lot of these companies are very old entities that were there. Right. So it might have been defined separately. In this case, actually, what is happening, most of them are tagged as payroll and legal entity.
Okay, and that's why it is.
That's why they are appearing in the list. So don't always think that they will be together. They may not be. That is why they have kept this optional. Okay, otherwise they would have made it mandatory.
So if I have to create a PSU, from where do I create? Do you have a different UI for that?
No, you may not have a different UI, but you can tag the same legal entity as a payroll statutory unit. And then this is the legal address. This is the employer identification number, okay, or the tax identification number, which is again on the employee's payslip. Okay, so then you can save.
At any point of time in an enterprise, we need to have minimum one legal employee and one PSU.
One legal employee, yes.
And one PSU also.
Yeah.
We cannot have any enterprise without a PSU or a legal employee.
If you have employees.
Okay.
And every legal entity will have a.
Yeah.
See this? As a separate place, you will not have this. That's what I was trying. Okay. So you define it from there and then you maintain all this. Okay. Now, another thing that I wanted to show you was the See, like here, again, you don't have a separate screen for the legal employer, right? So you define them from that screen itself. The other important thing for a legal entity is the legal entity HCM information. Can you all see this? Manage HCM legal entity HCM information. Inside this, you would need to maintain all the information which is applicable for that legal entity, all the HCM related information that is there for the legal entity, because that drives certain things. Behavior of the application is controlled by the information that you're seeing there. This is the Americas one. Oh. Rather than scrolling down, it's easier to just search here. Choose this and say save and close. Now, here you will be entering the default information for the workday. You can have a start time, end time, which is applicable for the entire legal entity. Okay, this is the HCM related information. The other critical thing that you have here is the employment model that you are going to use. Okay, so these are the different employment models that you have, typically 2-tier or a 3-tier model. So what does a 2-tier mean? 2-tier means that you could have an employee can have one or more than one assignment. Okay, single assignment or multiple assignment. And against each assignment, you can have multiple contracts. Or, right? So you choose between multiple contract, single assignment, multiple assignment, or a single assignment kind of a model. That is one. Second one is 3-tier model. 3-tier model means you would have one which has employment terms followed by assignments. Okay, so employment terms could be something like full-time employee or a part-time employee, and then you could have respective assignments for each of those employment terms, work terms or employment terms. So for this, what happens is you could have the same in-person employee working for 2 different entities. In one, they are full-time. In another, they work part-time. All right.
Sort of this example where there's an employees of full-time and a part-time also, can we implement it using multiple assignment only?
You can do it depending on what your requirements are. Now,
Okay.
when you have a multiple assignment, you are linking it to the same legal employer.
Correct. Correct.
If you have to use it with two different legal employers, then you need the 3-tier model.
Okay. Okay. Understood. So if you're employed in the same legal employer, then I can create multiple assignment among themselves. But if I need across different, then okay.
Right.
Then we have to go with the
Right.
term retire. Okay.
Right.
Why do they say that 3-tier is a little more complicated? We should not go with it.
They say that because what happens, first of all, I myself haven't seen too many companies using the 3-tier model, first of all. Okay, I haven't seen everything. So there must be some companies, some countries where it is being used. That is why Oracle has included it. Okay. Now, when we are having 3-tier model, how it complicates it is you need each time you need to have a separate employer and a separate assignment. If you want to terminate one assignment or you want to create one assignment, you have to be careful that you are doing it in the correct one.
Correct legal employer. Yeah.
Right. So from an end user perspective, there's more complication in managing that.
Mm.
From a implementation perspective, okay, understood, it's a one-time effort. If you are careful, and most of during the data loading and the data migration, most of it is anyways done electronically, so there's not too much of manual intervention there. But understanding that entire model becomes a big issue, right? So there'll be a lot of debate and lot of confusion about what is 3-tier model, what will be the employment terms, particularly if companies are not currently using it, then migrating it. So big question is, how do I use it? Okay, so that's why people generally keep it like, either a single assignment, keep your life simple, keep your life peaceful. And if you want to make things more complex, go for 3-tier multiple assignments. Working hours, we can typically have from, let's say, 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Standard working hours, 40 hours a week. Frequency. So frequency is like this one in what terms that has been quoted. So you could have weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. So this is 40 hours a week. Here, the other legal employer information, what is the salary level that either you're tagging at the assignment level or at the work terms level. So these are not mandatory, but more you enter it, better it is. Then this is the worker information number generation. How do you want it? So do you want automatic number being generated using the global sequencing? So across all legal entities, there'll be one single sequence. Or you could go legal entity wise sequencing, legal employer wise sequencing. Or you can do it manually, where you have to enter it manually, or you are not going to use it. Mostly people prefer sequencing number, or if they want have their own sequence number, like they go by department or they go by the location. A company having multiple locations, they would go location 1-001, location 2-001, and so on. with the value thing being mandatory, problem here is you need to know what these values are. Otherwise, it becomes difficult to see what they are. So these are the only ones that are there. Some cases they allow this, but not here. Okay, let me just for now choose the automatic number using global sequencing. Allow employment terms that you have defined, you want it to be over to allow overriding at the assignment level. People group flex field structure, whether you want to use it or not. In that case, you can link it. This is a basically a key flex field, HR key flex field that you can use. Then you have a minimum working age, let's say 16 years. This is driven by the statutory regulations. Minimum retirement age, maximum retirement age, maximum age of a minor. Okay, and these are the different things. So this was the legal employer details that we entered. It has to be 2 digits. So once you are done with this, you can keep, you have to submit it. But before that, let me show you the federal related information. This is for the US only. Okay, so whether they are government contractor or not. So there is a lot of reporting that has to be done by the companies to the statutory authorities. Company number. So depending on the size and shape of your company, you might have noticed that on a quarterly basis, I think quarterly or even monthly, these US reports their payroll data. So how many employees were employed, how many people gained employment, how many are still unemployed, and things like that. So those kind of things can be maintained over here. Okay, and they have to report it to the authorities. Establishments are typically their offices. This is the for which tax reporting unit you want the new hire. So whenever a new hire is reported by the organization, it has to be reported to the authorities. So based on that, they will recognize that basically.
This TRU, where do we create it?
Like we were doing, this is the tax reporting entity itself. Okay.
So do we create it or is it by default created?
Tax reporting entity can be linked to your same unit that you have defined. Okay. For your legal entity, the could be the payroll statutory unit also.
Okay.
So this is the equal employment opportunity, EEO. So those reporting things you can maintain here. None of this is mandatory. So initially, unless we need to do those EEO reporting and all that, we can leave it blank. So you could have a parent legal employer so that, okay. And this is the federal reporting information. So these you can keep it in one single place. This is the VETS, the veteran employment. So whenever you are employing veterans, you have to inform the authorities. So these are all things that are usually reported to the respective authorities. Companies often don't want to do it from the Fusion module. They either do it through their own separate legal, employment Excel sheets or through a separate um, tool. But in case they want to do it from here, then it can be done from here. So this is as far as the basic legal entity and the legal entity HCM information is concerned. So I'll go back to the place where we started workforce structures. And inside it, you will have the ability to create new structures as per your need. So the section that we come here is the organization section. Here you have the business unit, the departments, divisions. So divisions, business unit, legal entity. These were the three things that we entered that day while creating the enterprise. Okay. Now here we have the legal entity HCM information that we have just now seen. You can enter the same thing at the enterprise level as well. Okay. So if you look at the details, so this is the name of the enterprise and this is the location and this is the address. This is the workday information, worker number is not used, employment model 2-tier, global person name language, automatic final save, person number generation, when will it be generated? So you can have an initial person number. So that means from that number onwards, the next set of numbering will start. And there is a section for the conversion, currency conversion and the user account creation. Okay. So these are for whom do you want to create users? So party users are typically your third party vendor or your customer entities, whether they will get user accounts or not, so that they can connect to your system. Global payroll element information. So these are the global payroll element. You can have them one by one created over here. It will be created on the element screen, but you will be seeing it over here and you can use which ones you need as per your requirement. The balances that you want to use for tracking your running totals. This is the position synchronization. When we talk about position, when we define positions, you will see there is an option to synchronize it. Synchronize means that you define all of these information, that is, full-time, part-time, regular, temporary, assignment category, FT, start time, end time, job, location, all this information. When you assign a position to the employee, they can automatically default. So you don't have to re-enter all this information at the assignment level. Then you have the position incumbent validation, whether you want to check whether there is a person in that position or not. Employment configuration, do you want a default enterprise seniority date? This one is often used when people are moving around and across different legal entities. You want to track who has been in the enterprise for the longest period of time, whereas they might have moved across legal entities. HCM flow, any document type mapping, hierarchy configuration. These are all default things that you define and keep in the at the application level.
So what is a position hierarchy?
Position hierarchy is the reporting, like who reports to whom. Manager reports to senior manager reports to general manager. Okay. And you could have like individual position wise reporting. So you can say, let's say executive HR reports to manager HR, manager HR reports to, or even this manager HR, you could have a recruitment manager, you could have a compensation manager, you could have an employee services manager. So whom exactly does the person report to? And then
the position tree would be again that graphical representation of that.
Correct.
Similarly, the job hierarchy would also be similar only, right?
Actually, job hierarchy, they haven't given a job hierarchy.
Okay. Or they do not have it. Okay.
You
don't have it on.
Yeah, you have a very basic level. They say that, how will you transition from one job to another? So there is a job path that you can define.
Okay. Yeah, because in job, there's no manager, right? So how do I set up a hierarchy?
Actually, the way they have envisioned this job is more generic in nature.
Correct. Yeah.
Whereas position is more specific. So you should be in a position to say, okay, you progress from this position to this position.
Yeah. So most of the clients use position hierarchy and not the job hierarchy, right?
Actually, they don't have any option.
Okay. Or job hierarchy, there's no option only. Okay.
Yeah. So that's why they would have to use, if they want to use a hierarchy, they have to use either the position hierarchy or the supervisor hierarchy.
Okay.
this disability